The car was still running. Keys in the ignition, driver's door wide open, headlights cutting through the fog on a road that led absolutely nowhere. But Sarah Mitchell was gone. It was October 2019 when Detective Marcus Chun first arrived at the scene on Route 47, just outside Burlington, Vermont. Sarah Mitchell, a 32-year-old elementary school teacher, had vanished without a trace on her drive home from a parent-teacher conference. Her red Honda Civic sat idling on the shoulder of the empty road, engine warm, phone still connected to the car's Bluetooth, playing her favorite podcast. The volume was turned all the way up, as if she had been trying to hear something over another sound. Her purse sat untouched in the passenger seat, wallet inside with cash and credit cards. A Huffington granola bar rested on the center console. Everything suggested she had just stepped out for a moment and would return any second. But she never did. Sarah had been driving this route for 3 years, every Tuesday and Thursday evening. She knew every curve, every stop sign, every landmark. Her husband, David, had spoken to her just 20 minutes before she disappeared. She sounded normal, maybe a little tired, talking about a student's progress and what they should have for dinner. The call ended naturally when she said she was almost home. That was the last time anyone heard her voice. The initial search began immediately. Police dogs tracked her scent from the car to a point about 50 feet into the dense woods, then lost it completely. It was as if she had simply evaporated. There were no signs of struggle, no torn clothing, no footprints beyond that 50-foot marker. The canine units circled the area repeatedly, confused and agitated. One handler told Detective Chun he had never seen the dogs behave that way before. They would reach the same spot, whine, and refuse to go further. David Mitchell became the first suspect, as spouses always are. But his alibi was airtight. He had been at a company dinner with 40 witnesses. His phone location confirmed he never left the restaurant. Surveillance footage showed him there the entire evening. The investigation turned elsewhere. Sarah had no enemies, no secret debts, no hidden affairs. Her life was ordinary in every measurable way. She volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends, had a small circle of close friends, and was planning a vacation to Maine for her 10th wedding anniversary. Nothing suggested a reason to disappear. Then the calls started. 3 days after Sarah vanished, her phone began receiving calls from an unknown number. The calls came at exactly 3 in the morning, every single night. When police traced the number, they found it belonged to a disconnected line that had been out of service for 6 years. The previous owner of that number had been an elderly woman named Patricia Groves, who died in 2013. Technical experts confirmed the calls were impossible. The line was dead, physically cut from the network. Yet Sarah's phone records showed incoming calls, each lasting exactly 47 seconds. No voicemail was ever left. Detective Chun interviewed everyone Sarah knew. Her best friend, Michelle Torres, mentioned something strange during her statement. 2 weeks before Sarah disappeared, she had found an old photograph slipped under her classroom door. The photo showed a woman who looked remarkably similar to Sarah, standing in front of the same elementary school. But the picture appeared to be from the 1970s, based on the clothing and the faded quality. On the back, someone had written a single word in careful cursive. The word was again. Sarah had shown the photo to Michelle, laughing nervously, saying, "It must be a weird coincidence." Michelle remembered Sarah seemed more unsettled than she let on. The school principal retrieved the photo from Sarah's desk drawer, where she had kept it. When Detective Chun examined it, he felt a chill run down his spine. The woman in the photograph was not just similar to Sarah. The resemblance was uncanny. Almost identical. He sent the photo to the State Archives and Historical Society. Within a week, they identified the woman. Her name was Catherine Harper, a teacher at the same elementary school who disappeared in November 1973. She had been driving home on Route 47, the same road where Sarah vanished. Her car had been found with the engine running, door open, and all her belongings inside. Catherine Harper was never found. The case went cold after 6 months. Detective Chun pulled the old case file from storage. The similarities were disturbing. Both women were 32 years old. Both taught 2nd grade. Both disappeared on a Thursday evening in autumn. Both were last seen driving home alone. The location of the abandoned vehicles was less than a quarter-mile apart. The reports described the same bizarre detail about the search dogs losing the scent at almost the exact same distance into the woods. One investigator from 1973 had written a note in the margin that caught Chun's attention. It read, "Dogs acted like they hit a wall. Can't explain it." The case took an even stranger turn when a local historian contacted the police department. She had been researching disappearances in the area and found another case. In October 1928, a young woman named Eleanor Price vanished while traveling on what was then called County Road 12, now part of Route 47. Eleanor had been her horse and carriage were found abandoned on the road with her belongings. Untouched, she was 32 years old. The pattern was impossible to ignore, yet impossible to explain. Detective Chun drove to the exact spot where Sarah's car had been found. He stood there in the cold November air, looking at the tree line. Something about this place felt wrong, though he could not articulate why. The woods were unremarkable. Typical Vermont forest with birch and pine. Yet standing there, he felt an overwhelming urge to leave. The silence was too complete. No birds, no rustling leaves, no distant traffic. Just silence that pressed against his ears. He decided to walk the 50 feet into the woods where the dogs had stopped. The leaves crunched under his boots, the only sound in the oppressive quiet. When he reached the spot, marked by old police tape, he noticed something. The trees formed an almost perfect circle around this point. The branches bent inward, creating a natural dome. It looked old, ancient even, as if the trees had been growing this way for decades. In the center, the ground was slightly depressed, like a shallow bowl. Nothing grew there. No grass, no moss, just bare earth. Detective Chun bent down and brushed away some leaves. Beneath them, he found something that made his blood run cold. Carved into the hard ground were initials EPCHSM, Eleanor Price, Catherine Harper, Sarah Mitchell. The letters were weathered, the EP barely visible, worn smooth by time. Someone, or something, had been marking this spot for nearly a century. The investigation reached a dead end. Despite the evidence, despite the pattern, there was no logical explanation. No remains were ever found. No witnesses came forward. The FBI examined the case and found nothing that suggested human trafficking or foul play. The carved initials were analyzed, but provided no useful forensic evidence. They were simply letters cut into stone-hard earth. Impossible to date accurately. David Mitchell appeared on the local news 6 months after Sarah vanished, pleading for any information. His face had aged 10 years. He spoke about their life together, about the wedding they were planning to renew their vows. He said he still called her phone every night, just to hear her voicemail greeting. The mysterious 3 o'clock calls had stopped after 2 weeks, as suddenly as they began. Detective Chun retired 3 years later, but he never forgot Sarah Mitchell. The case file sat on his desk until his last day. Sometimes, late at night, he would drive out to Route 47 and sit in his car near that spot. He never walked back into those woods. Part of him was afraid of what he might find. Another part was afraid he might not come back out. The elementary school installed a memorial plaque for Sarah Mitchell in the hallway outside her classroom. Students and teachers leave flowers there on the anniversary of her disappearance. David Mitchell moved away from Burlington, unable to bear living in the house they had shared. He never remarried. On certain autumn evenings, when the fog rolls in thick over Route 47, local residents avoid that stretch of road. They cannot explain why. Exactly. They just know it feels wrong. Some claim they have seen a figure standing at the tree line, just visible in their headlights, before vanishing. Others report their radios going silent as they pass that spot, only to resume seconds later. The police dismiss these reports as imagination fueled by a tragic story. But in the state archives, there is a file that grows thicker each year. It contains news clippings, police reports, and historical documents spanning nearly a century. The file is labeled Unexplained Disappearances, Route 47, Burlington, Vermont. Investigators add to it whenever they find another connection, another pattern that defies explanation. The question that haunts everyone who studies this case is not what happened to Sarah Mitchell, Catherine A. Harper, or Eleanor Price. The question is what will happen in another 46 years, when autumn comes again, and another 32-year-old teacher drives home alone on Route 47. Will someone be there to warn her? Will anyone believe them, if they try? Or will the pattern continue, as it has for almost 100 years, adding another set of initials to the cold earth in a circle of silent trees? Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some places hold secrets that time cannot reveal. And some roads lead to destinations that exist outside our understanding. Sarah Mitchell learned this truth. And somewhere, in a way we cannot comprehend, perhaps she is still learning it.